Welcome back. Today I want to talk about mind reading because it came up several days ago. Somebody said, what about, this is what's happening to me. What should I do about it? Is this okay? And it happened again today. Somebody brought it up. This is what's happening to me. What should I do about it? Is this okay? And so I want to dive into this subject. It's going to arise because of your meditation. It's actually perfectly aligned with your meditative practice. And so you might notice this begin to arise in your daily life. I want you to know it's absolutely normal, it's absolutely natural, and you're going to see that by the end of this video. My guru, Ashokji, used to read my mind regularly, and so let's get into it. So I kept seeing my guru Ashok, and I noticed over and over again that he would just weave into the conversation questions that I had in the background of my mind. So for example, I was holding in the background of my mind at the time, why do I need to do this stretching before every single meditation? This Maha Mudra, I'm going to stretch before every single meditation. Okay, I think I get that part, but why do I have to stretch also at the end? Why is he telling me this? And I didn't say it to him because I was worried that it would be disrespectful to ask that question even, and so he just answered it for me. We were just sitting together and we started to get up, and he said, you know what, before we get up, let's stretch. And we stretched just a little bit, and then we got up, and he said that's why we need to stretch before we get up from meditation, so we don't trip over our own feet and fall on our faces. And I was like, wow, oh, that makes so much sense. That's so simple and natural and common sense. And then it struck me. Wait, that's the question I didn't ask. And this keeps happening over and over again. And so it was very natural, it was very subtle. He wasn't trying to prove anything to me, but he would just answer my questions that I had in the background of my mind. And maybe he was fully conscious of what he was doing, or maybe he was even doing it subconsciously, because it can happen both ways. And it was probably happening both ways all the time, partly subconsciously, partly consciously. He was probably consciously receiving what I was feeling and thinking, and he was also being directed from the higher self, just answering spontaneously, and not necessarily, he didn't necessarily have to be conscious of everything that was going on all the time. That's not the way the conscious mind it processes. It doesn't need to know everything. But the higher self, the expanded self, does know those things, and it works through those things. You don't necessarily have to in your tiny little personality of the conscious mind. Another fantastic story about Ashokji, a very good friend of mine, came to see him, came to receive Kriya from him, and she was thinking in the background of her mind, but I'm really connected to Swami Sri Yukteswar. He really speaks to my soul, and I've really connected myself with him. He was kind of her Ishta, you see. And so she was worried about that in coming to receive Kriya from Ashokji. That was a little bit of a worry. She had processed through that idea quite a bit, but yet she still had it on the back burner of her mind. It was floating in her subconscious, you see. And she came to receive Kriya from Ashokji. She sat down with him, with her husband there as well, and Ashokji said, you know, Sri Yukteswar is welcome to come and join us as well. Everybody is welcome. Out of nowhere, he just said that, and it just blew her mind. And that's the kind of mind reading that my guru would do. It was beautiful. Now, a student of mine called me up and he said, I'm really worried about reading other people's minds. He was in a meeting and he fully saw and felt and heard the thought of his partner, who was not even in the room. They were on video chat, and he saw and he felt and he heard the angry thought of his partner. They were going through something, and the partner was very frustrated, and he saw and he felt and he heard all of it. And he said, I'm getting the mind reading power because of my yogic practice. He wasn't looking for it, but it just showed up, you see? And he was very worried about it. And he said, we're told not to use powers. So how do I stop this? I said, do you think you can? And he thought about it. He goes, I have no idea how I would stop using it. I said, that's right. You see, the rule of yoga, the principle, the very first principle of yoga is be still and know, right? That is the very first principle of yoga. I'm going to quiet myself. I am going to enter into the low idle state. I am going to become very, very silent and quiet physically. I'm going to lower my heart rate. I'm going to lower my breath rate by using the heart rate variability resonance, first of all, and sitting very still as well. It's going to quiet me down. And that quieting of the body has a reflexive manner back on the mind. The mind begins to slow and quiet as well. So now you are very, very quiet and still. And all of a sudden, your perception begins to open. First of all, your intuition grows each time you touch the silence. Every time you become quiet, every time you touch the silence, every time you go deep in meditation, your intuition just grows a little bit. It gets a little bit stronger, a little more powerful. It becomes a little more loud. That still, quiet voice becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and louder, and you hear it more clearly. Because you are more clear. And that's the main thing. You're walking through your day and your perception has been cleaned out. There isn't all this garbage, right? You've cleaned out. You're doing the Om Japa in the chakras. Another thing, cleaning the window of your perception is being cleaned and cleaned and cleaned and cleaned and cleaned, and suddenly things become clear. Whereas before, you were this burgeoning host of things. I'm carrying all of these things, and they filter through my lens of life, and I just see little pieces of what life actually is, and then I clear, and I clear, and I clear, and my perception becomes more and more open and understanding and clear, and I'm stepping back, and I'm not so myopic, right? I'm becoming bigger and more expanded and more understanding. And suddenly, because of that, I'm able to see more and more and more of what's actually happening. And that's what that student was experiencing. How do you turn that off? Are you going to be able to turn that off? No, of course not. That's not what the yogis mean. They say, I hope you've done the work. I hope you have cleaned out the lower chakras and you're not selfish and greedy and you're not into all of that, because now it's going to increase your problems. It's as if you've been juggling 2 or 3 balls all of your life, and they were heavy and they were messy, and but they were the 3 balls you had. And then now we're increasing your load. We're increasing what you know. We're increasing what you have to work with. And suddenly you have 5 balls and 6 balls and 7 balls. And so you have to balance and arrange all of this new information inside of yourself as you move through your day. And the yogi is saying, don't be tempted by that. Don't be tempted to get overly involved in the thoughts of other people, overly invested, overly curious in the thoughts of others. Instead, focus on your yoga and the thing that brought you to this place where you could see more of life, but don't get so invested in life now that you see more of it, right? So you're seeing more of life, but don't get trapped by it. You see? That's what they're warning against. But it's not as if you could just turn this off, right? So I just spoke with a student. She's getting back from India, and she came to see all of these friends and family that she hasn't seen in a long time. And suddenly she's seeing them because of her yogic practice, what she's been doing all this time alone in her house. Suddenly she sees all of them very, very clearly. And if there's jealousy, and if there's negative thoughts, or there's bitterness, or any kind of negativity, it would just show up, and she couldn't handle it all the time. Sometimes she had to escape, or she had to say, you know, could you give me a little bit of space? Another student came to me, he said, I'm seeing everybody's chakras as if I know all of the content which is within those chakras. So it's not that you're going to read thoughts or hear thoughts or know thoughts exactly. It might just be a feeling. You might be very sensitive to feelings, so you might feel the anger, or feel the jealousy, or feel the confusion, or feel the frustration, and not have any clear thoughts. You might be very sensitive to energy, so you might not know what it is, but you might feel that there's something there and I don't know what it is. Years ago, I had a lot of friends who were massage therapists, and they all told me the very same story. If you can have the most unintuitive, rock solid person, there's only this material universe, this is all that exists, and you put them in front of a body and have them rub that body every day for 5 years, and without fail, they will begin to feel energy. They will begin to intuit energy automatically just by going through contacting people every day. You don't have any choice. You will eventually intuit a lot of things. And so you go to a very good massage therapist, and they'll look at you and scan your body, and they'll just know where your trouble parts are. And that's a very holistic kind of health and understanding, isn't it? When you intuit things on that deep level. So a lot of doctors, a lot of therapists will encounter that over time. So to bring this really way down to earth, it's in the processes of neurolinguistic programming. If you want to learn how to read minds, well, first of all, meditate and get over it. Don't worry about reading minds. But let's say you're curious, and that's what brought you here. That's fine. Go ahead and use the heart rate variability resonance every day. Use the sitting very still as you sit to meditate every single day, and your mind will clear. And you'll get in touch with the bliss and the silence inside of you. And it will be more fascinating than reading anybody's mind ever. Because that bliss and that joy is much more exciting than anything else. And that's what you want to be attached to, rather than other people's thoughts, as if they could ever be that interesting. But let's say you're curious and you want to understand how this actually works. If you want to notice things, you have to notice things. And so sit in front of your friend, and this is an NLP exercise, and have your friend sit there and be completely blank, and then have them think of something that makes them really upset or frustrated. And notice how their face changes, right? Maybe you can't see it on me. I'm trying to do it for you right now. So I'm going to be blank. And then something that frustrates me. Then something that makes me blissful. And I could make it very obvious, but I'm trying to make it subtle, you see? And that's what you want your friend to do. Not to hide it, not to mask it from you, but just to make it subtle. You're trying to learn from each other. And so go through all of the emotions, and what will happen is you will begin to perceive what is going on inside of people by looking at their face. You want to look at the tone of their skin. You want to look at the texture of their skin. You want to look at the position of the body. Am I happy and upbeat, or am I sad and down? There's a position to the body. You can begin to pick up on these things. And maybe you think that's very simple because you've been practicing it. But some people never practice these things, and they're the ones that walk around their life and they bump into people and they don't understand why they keep bumping into people. It's because they do not have the skill of sensitivity what NLP calls sensory acuity. That means paying attention. That means being here and now and in the room. And as we learn that skill through meditation more and we are more and more present, and our perception is cleared, our own baggage is cleared out, and we are aware of what's happening in the room, in the space between you and me. We become more aware. And so when something comes in there and there's an elephant in the room, you become aware of it. So it's a process. And I have an older video on sensory acuity on this channel and how to develop that. And so that and meditation will lead you to more and more mind reading. If you want to see some spectacular demonstrations of this, go watch Darren Brown. He's an absolute master of this. He's a showman, first of all. That's how he came to neurolinguistic programming. And he's a magician, and he's just magical. He's so good at it. And a lot of his videos, he's trying to debunk mysticism. But I think he's doing the converse. He's actually proving mysticism and how it actually works. It's nothing, there's no hocus pocus, and that's what he's clearing away. You say, forget the hocus pocus. Well, of course, it's all a process. And yogis and mystics didn't always have the language or the understanding of the physiology and how the body works and how magnetism works and how energy works. They didn't always have a language for that. And so they just group it into this place that's, I don't know, I can't explain it, but this is what's happening. Well, that's normal. We all have moments when we can't explain something, right? So he's not actually debunking mysticism. He's actually propping it up and showing you how it actually works. And it's absolutely stunning. He's a master, Darren Brown. I really, really appreciate all of his work. That's how mind reading actually works. You become clear, and then you notice more. Right? You become quiet, and then you notice more. And so if this is happening in your life, and now you've got more to juggle, there's more information to process, right? And so what do? Well, you have to forgive, and you have to forget as often as possible. And maybe you have to clear yourself more often. So an exercise I just gave a student of mine, I said, imagine that you're sitting in a beautiful celestial fire, and it's just burning away all the debris around you and inside of you. It's a holy fire. It's not burning you, it's burning away all of the debris to reveal your soul beautifully. And you can imagine that holy fire is around you at all times. Some people feel other people's energy and they have to deal with it day after day. They will put a shield, right? They'll imagine a glass shield, and that energy is not touching me. So we're learning boundaries energetically. That's fine. We'll learn it energetically. So the energy comes and it bounces off of my glass wall, and I'm not touched by it. I used to imagine that I was so cleaned out, that I was razor thin. So if any energy came at me, it would just slice right by. It wouldn't even touch me because I was just razor thin. That was one for me. Now, a friend of mine who was a psychic, he said, if you put up a wall, somebody can sometimes grab that wall and pull you around, right? So he's warning me about that. So you might encounter that. You put up this wall of energy and you think you're protected, but again, somebody pushes on your wall and grabs you by grabbing the wall. He said, so what if you're a balloon and you just blow yourself up? And you blow yourself up, and you blow up this bliss and this joy and this inspiration inside of you. And so somebody pushes on your wall and boom, it just bounces right back. Doesn't bother you. You're just here in your ball of bliss, right? That's another one. You can imagine a celestial rain, right? Coming down, the manna from heaven. The kahuna love this, and you can do it with the ha breath. You put out your hands like this, and you imagine the manna descending from heaven, the energy coming down from heaven, and you'll start to feel it as you go into heart rate variability resonance. You'll feel the hands hot and heavy, and you'll feel the tingling. And that's what the kahuna were doing with the ha breath. They breathe in, and as they breathe out, they'd feel that manna from heaven collecting in their hands. You can put them, you can stand up and put these down by your sides and relax. And just establish your connection with heaven. Do that over and over again. Feel the mana collect, and now you're big and you're strong. It's a very good way to protect yourself energetically if you need that. Now, some people will read other people's minds and thoughts and it won't bother them at all. But some people, it will start to bother you a little bit. Remember, if it bothers you, there's something inside of you which is vibrating with that. It's resonating, and that's why it's bothering you. So you have to clear that out from yourself until nothing bothers you. It means there's something left. There's something for me to do. I need to do a little more Om Japa in my chakras, allow all of that to wash out of myself, become clear. So I have nothing but compassion and understanding. Now, does that mean I have to put up with that person? I have to put up with what they're doing? I have to allow them to continue what they're doing to me or my family? No. But it means I do have compassion and understanding. And I'm going to put up a boundary, but I have compassion and understanding at the same time. I wasn't going to do this video for today. I had something else planned, but it came up twice in a row, like right on top of each other, and I thought, wow, this would really be a good talk. I think everybody would like to hear about this and learn about mind reading and how it can happen because of your meditative practice, what to think about it, and what might be helpful to do with it. And you just have to integrate it. You just have to allow and forgive and allow it to be and integrate and understand and develop compassion and understand that if it bothers us, it's because there's something down inside of us. We're worried about the same kind of thing. And so we can continue to clear that out until we have a lot more compassion and understanding and acceptance, and yet boundaries at the same time. It's a little tricky. There's more to juggle, but it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful life. I was planning to talk about this in the satsang that we're going to have on Patreon this Saturday. So I will talk about it there as well. We're going to so if you like this conversation, you have more questions about this, we're going to spend an hour together in a satsang. We've been doing these, and there's a number of them in archives. I'm not sure how many. I think there might be 8. No, there might be more than that. Satsangs, each an hour long. We actually went for an hour and 20 minutes. I went way over last week. And people come and they go, and I record the whole thing, and they ask questions, and it's a wonderful back and forth. It's turning into a absolutely beautiful community. I absolutely adore everybody that comes and supports in this way. So if that sounds interesting to you, to spend a whole hour and grill me with your questions, well then come on over. We'd love to have you. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, be sure to hit that bell down below so I can see all of you next time.